Okay. So we have studied about the structure of the nephron and the basic functions of the nephron and what is present in different parts of the nephron. And today we are going to study the detail of the excretory function of the nephron. We're going to see the specific hormones that are functioning in the different parts of the nephron and what those hormones they are doing and which hormones are controlling the amount of water, which hormones are controlling the amount of salts, and how they are managing the pH of the body, the pH of the human body, and keeping it at a balance. Okay? How these hormones are preventing dehydration, how they are preventing excess salt content, how they are preventing high hydrogen content inside the blood. This सारा कुछ जो है, we are going to study it in the topic that we will be covering today. Let me go to the presentation first of all, and let me open up the presentation so that we can see what we have today to study. Okay? We have already studied the introduction of homeostasis. We have already studied how homeostasis works. Okay, we are going to focus on the last topic of the chapter, and that is excretion. Excretion में भी क्या पढ़ना है हमने? We are going to study about the basic function of the kidney, the detailed function of the nephron, and how the nephron is controlling the excretion of toxic materials. We have studied all this before in the last period. I uploaded the video also. Stay in touch with the video so that you people can follow up with whatever we are studying in the class. This also we have completed, and this also we discussed in the last class. We studied up to this point. Okay. Now the questions that we have already studied, the topics that we have already studied, the questions that you must expect are: draw a neat and label diagram of the nephron and the internal structure of the kidney, summarize the process of urine formation briefly, show the pathway of blood through the human kidney. These are some important questions that you should be able to study before coming to the topic that we're going to discuss. Okay. Today we are going to study urine formation. I will see if I can play the video that is related to this function. Then I will show you some related images, and then we will have some practice questions that you people will practice at home. Okay, so this is what we will be doing today. This is an important topic, and you should expect long questions from this topic also. Urine formation, as we have already discussed previously, it is made up of three main processes. Okay? Pressure filtration, selective reabsorption, and secretory function of the tubules. That is the secretory nature, tubular secretion of the tubules. Okay, we have already studied जो है अपना क्या कहते हैं उसको glomerular filtration हमने already study कर लिया है. Today we will be completing selective reabsorption. Just to refresh your minds again, I will go to glomerular filtration, and let us revise glomerular filtration once again before carrying on with selective reabsorption. Okay, let me go back to the presentation. First of all, let us see what we have in the glomerular filtration. I showed you the video also, and I told you now this is the glomerular filtration, also known as ultrafiltration. Excretory function of the nephron, what does it do? It is from here that your long question is going to start. It filters blood. Waste pass out as urine, occurs in the three main key processes: ultrafiltration, also known as glomerular filtration, selective reabsorption, and tubular secretion. Ultrafiltration takes place under a very high pressure. A hydrostatic pressure is created in the glomerulus. That means there is a high pressure due to the high amount of blood, high amount of liquid content in the glomerulus. And this pressure is created due to the difference in the diameter of the efferent and the afferent arterioles. We already discussed this in the last lesson. 20% of the blood plasma is filtered in the Bowman's capsule due to the high pressure in the glomerulus, and the filtrate, that we get from this process is as the glomerular filtrate. The glomerular filtrate is similar to the blood plasma in composition. It contains glucose, amino acids, vitamins, ions, nitrogenous base, some hormones, and water. 125 ml per minute is excreted from the glomerulus. Okay, we have discussed all this in detail, and I uploaded this video for you people so that you people can get it on the YouTube also. Okay, I have shared the link with one of your class fellows, and I told her that she should share it with all of you. So the detail of this topic has already been discussed in the YouTube video. I will upload this one also, and these lectures that I am uploading is just for you people so that you people should get the lecture everywhere. We discussed this one also. Go to the previous video and you will get this detail in that video. A very good detail. पूरा process जो है उस वीडियो में आप लोगों के लिए जो है वो मैंने डिस्कस किया हुआ है. Practice questions है. Practice questions आज की वीडियो में they will be uploaded. And now we are coming to the next part of the topic, selective reabsorption. Selective reabsorption, we already know that 125 ml of water is produced. And out of the 125 ml of water that is produced, 124 ml is reabsorbed. Now keep it very, very clear. These are very, very specific figures. 125 ml of water is produced. It is filtered out of the glomerulus. And out of that 125, 124 ml is reabsorbed back, because this is a huge amount of water per minute. Very selective. 80% of this reabsorption, this 124 ml, 80% of the reabsorption takes place at the proximal convoluted tubules. The proximal convoluted tubules. The proximal convoluted tubules, in that region, what is going to be reabsorbed? Mainly glucose, amino acids, vitamins, hormones, 80% of sodium chloride and water are reabsorbed back. Now, these are all vital, जो है वो chemicals and nutrients. Vital क्यों होते हैं? Because they are very, very important to run the mechanism of the body, to run the metabolism of the body. दोबारा देख लीजिए. Once again, selective reabsorption. 125 ml is produced in the glomerular filtrate. Out of 125, 124 ml is reabsorbed. This is a very selective process. Everything is not absorbed back. 80% reabsorption takes place. Proximal convoluted tubule में ये सारा process होता है. It takes place in the proximal convoluted tubule. Glucose, amino acids, vitamins, hormones, 80% of sodium chloride and water is reabsorbed back. Okay, loop of Henle. Now the function of the loop of Henle, we come to the next part, that is the loop of Henle. It conserves water. Conserves water. When I say conserves water, message दीजिए, what do we mean by conserves water? इसका क्या मतलब होता है? जब हम कहें conserves water, what does it mean? Anybody has the correct answer? Just give me the message. Okay. Conserves water का मतलब होता है saves water. When we say to conserve something, it means to save. Okay. Land conservation, wildlife conservation, water conservation, okay, food conservation, to prevent it from wastage. The loop of Henle, now these materials are absorbed in the proximal convoluted tubule. The next part is the loop of Henle. The loop of Henle is highly permeable to water. Highly permeable to water means it allows a lot of reabsorption of water. Which part of the loop of Henle? The descending loop of Henle. Then the ascending loop of Henle, it is impermeable to water. Now these are very specific differences which you have to remember. The ascending loop is impermeable to water. And in this part, what is taking place? Sodium, chloride, potassium, and other ions are actively absorbed back. Actively absorbed back means it is taken back by the using of energy, by usage of ATP. Then in the distal convoluted tubule, this is also regulatory function. Here again, water will be absorbed back, but here water will be absorbed back under the action of specific hormones. And the blood pH is controlled. Collecting ducts are impermeable in nature. Urine is concentrated even more in the collecting ducts and the distal convoluted tubule. Now let me give you the sketch. And after the sketch, then I will go back to the board and I will tell you this, I will explain it on the board again for you. Now this is a sketch a very important sketch for urine formation. Okay. Now this is the glomerulus. In the glomerulus, we get the glomerular filtrate, from which we can see that some important materials are absorbed back passively. Okay. This is the descending loop. Okay. This is the position of the medulla. Water is absorbed back without using any energy. Now over here, this part of the loop of Henle is impermeable to water. This part is impermeable to water. And this part, what does it do? It sends salts back into the blood, but by the use of ATP. Then we come to the distal convoluted tubule. From the distal convoluted tubule and the collecting duct, under hormonal control, क्या होता है कि water जो है, it is going to be sent back into the blood once again. इसकी detail हम आगे देखते हैं. Now, is it okay with you people, or should I go to the slide again? Do you need me to explain it once more? Just give me a message so that I can go back once more. If you need one more explanation, I can go back once more. If you want me to explain it once more, I can go back. I think I should go back once more. चलिए दोबारा देख लेते हैं. Let us see it again. Selective reabsorption, 125 ml is produced in the glomerulus, 124 ml is reabsorbed back. This is a very selective process. 80% of reabsorption takes place in the proximal convoluted tubule, along with water, glucose, amino acid, vitamin, hormones. 80% of sodium chloride are absorbed back. Then we come to the loop of Henle. The loop of Henle has two main parts. The descending loop, which is very, very highly permeable to water. Water just moves across it without any kind of using of energy. Then the ascending loop does not allow water back, but sodium chloride, potassium monovalent ions, and some other ions are actively absorbed back into the blood, because these ions are very, very important. Sodium is a very vital ion, chloride is a very vital ion, potassium is very important. These ions, they play very important functions in the nervous system, in the they act in the enzyme systems, and in सारों में जो है ना ये enzymes जो है ये जो ions हैं ये इनका बहुत बड़ा function होता है, ठीक है? And other ions are absorbed जो है ना actively back. Distal convoluted tubule, osmoregulatory in function, it controls the blood pH. Collecting ducts are impermeable in nature. Urine is concentrated even more in the collecting ducts. Now, this is the collecting duct. This is impermeable. This is impermeable. This is permeable to water. This is completely permeable to water. From here, minerals are going to be taken back actively. Red arrow means active reabsorption. यहाँ पर minerals are taken back into the blood to maintain the pH of the blood by active reabsorption. ठीक है? Water is not going to be reabsorbed back. However, water will be reabsorbed back in the distal convoluted tubule and in the collecting duct. The collecting duct, however, it is the last part. From here, urine, it goes into the minor calyces and then into the major calyces. Okay, let us go to the board first of all, and then from the board I will bring people back to the presentation again. Okay, we have studied about the urine formation. We have studied the first two processes, the first two steps of urine formation, and we have seen how the materials, they are going to be, the useful materials are returned to the blood. Okay, so now what we are going to see is that how the hormones that are going to function and the hormones that are going to control this return of materials. We know that excretion is a very important homeostatic process which maintains the amount of metabolic wastes inside the body. Okay? And these metabolic wastes, if they are allowed to exceed a specific amount, then what happens? They can become very, very toxic. And these metabolic wastes, which are present, which the kidney is going to remove, are mainly nitrogenous wastes. Okay, and we have already studied that the nitrogenous wastes, their nature and according to habitat जो है, how they are acting, starting from ammonia to urea to uric acid. We have already studied how they are going to behave and how much of water they require to be neutralized. We have already studied this in the metabolic, in the previous classes. Okay, if there's any problem at all, you people should ask me as many questions as you want. I don't like a sleepy class, so you can ask me as many questions as you want, beta, but please be attentive and be present in the class. Now, urine formation made, the first one was the glomerular filtration. Okay, the glomerular filtration is also known as ultrafiltration, and what happened in the glomerular filtration was that due to the difference in diameter, I am revising the topic again. Due to the difference in diameter, what happened? A pressure was created in the glomerulus, and due to this pressure, liquid was forced out. Liquid was forced out of the glomerulus into the Bowman's capsule, and that glomerulus liquid, it was called as the glomerular fluid. That glomerular fluid, the composition was somewhat similar to plasma. Then in the proximal convoluted tubule and the first part of the loop of Henle, reabsorption takes place. I am repeating it again, beta. Please be attentive. Loop of Henle and proximal convoluted tubule reabsorption takes place, and in that reabsorption, all the useful materials, they are taken back into the body. All the useful materials, they are absorbed back into the body. The minerals are actively absorbed back, and water is passively taken up and it is sent back into the body. From here, then the next part of the loop of Henle, that is the ascending loop of Henle. Ascending loop of Henle is that part where water is not going to be reabsorbed. ये याद रखिए आप लोग, remember this, water will not be reabsorbed in the ascending loop of Henle. The ascending loop of Henle is strictly impermeable to water. अभी तो बहुत आसान लग रहा है. MCQ question में option आ जाएगा, which of the following parts is impermeable to water? Glomerulus, loop, descending limb of the loop of Henle, proximal convoluted tube. ठीक है, ascending loop of Henle. फिर हम कहेंगे कि जी कोर्स में नहीं था, तो ये आपको याद रखना है कि this one line के ascending loop of Henle is impermeable to water. This is an MCQ question which at present is very easy, लेकिन बाद में जाके confusing हो सकता है because बहुत सारा कोर्स जो है वो जमा हो जाएगा. ठीक है, impermeable है. Now, after the ascending loop of Henle, we have the distal convoluted tubule. In the distal convoluted tubule, a very, very important topic now. अलग से इसमें long question भी आता है और completely long question भी इसमें आता है. Distal convoluted tubule is the area where hormone action is going to take place. ठीक है, hormones will be produced. Tubular secretion is going to take place. ठीक है, tubular secretion यहाँ पर होगा, और tubular secretion से क्या होगा? Tubular secretion से what is going to happen? From the tubular secretion, the pH of the blood is going to be maintained. Some materials will be taken back, some materials will be added on from the blood capillaries directly under the impact of specific hormones. Now let us go back to the presentation. This is a very important part of the urine formation. Okay? During secretion, which secretion? Tubular secretion. During secretion, some substances such as hydrogen, creatinine, and drugs will be removed from the blood through the peritubular capillary network into the collecting duct. Okay, now let me ask you a question. Where is the peritubular capillary network present? Give me answers very quickly, please. This is the blood supply to the nephron. We have the vasa recta, we have the peritubular capillaries, we have the afferent arteriole, we have the efferent arterioles, we have the interlobular arteries. Where is the peritubular capillary present? Give me answers, please. I need answers from you people. I don't like a sleeping class. Yes, beta. Around the proximal convoluted tubule, okay. Not only around the proximal convoluted tubule, it is around the distal convoluted tubule also. The peritubular capillaries are surrounding the distal convoluted tubule and the proximal convoluted tubule. Okay? It is around the distal convoluted tubule and the proximal convoluted tubule. And here we have the loop of Henle. What do we have over there? We have the vasa recta. So, will be removed from the blood through the peritubular capillary. Matlab, the blood supply from that area, it is going to directly secrete these ions and drugs into the collecting duct. The end products of all these processes is urine, which is essentially a collection of substances that has not been reabsorbed during glomerular filtration or tubular secretion. एक दफा और, the end product of all these processes is urine. All these processes: glomerular filtration, selective reabsorption, tubular secretion. In the end, what do we get? We get urine, which is essentially a collection of substances that has not been reabsorbed during glomerular filtration or tubular reabsorption. Tubular reabsorption that takes place in the loop of Henle. Okay. Urine is mainly composed of water that has not been reabsorbed, which is the way in which the body lowers the blood volume by increasing the amount of water that becomes urine instead of becoming reabsorbed. दोबारा देखिए, urine is mainly composed of water that has not been reabsorbed, which is the way, which is the means in which the body lowers the blood volume. ठीक है? By increasing the amount of water that contains urine instead of becoming reabsorbed. Now, this takes place mainly during the winter season. We do not need a dilute blood system. If we get a dilute blood system, that means that the pH of the blood is going to go down. But during the summer, the urine is concentrated. This condition that we have discussed over here, this occurs during winter when we pass out large amounts of urine. The main other component of urine is urea, which is a highly soluble molecule composed of ammonia and carbon dioxide, and it provides the outlet of nitrogen from the body. Urine also contains salts and some other waste components. Red blood cells and sugar are not normally found in urine, but if they are present, red blood cells and sugar, if they are present in urine, then that means that the glomerulus is either injured or we are facing a problem of diabetes mellitus. Okay, so red blood cells and sugar not present in the urine, amino acids not a very healthy part of the urine. Urine mainly contains urea, water, some useless salts, and some unwanted materials. Now, this is a sketch that you people must remember and draw. This is the proximal convoluted tubule. From here, sodium chloride, potassium, water, bicarbonates, glucose, amino acids, everything is going to be absorbed back. From here also, it is going to be absorbed back. Okay. Here, mainly the monovalent and the divalent are going to be reabsorbed. Water is not going to be absorbed. Then over here, under the action of various hormones, mainly the hormones are aldosterone and antidiuretic hormone. They are going to remove the required amount of water and balance the pH of water. And over here, aldosterone is going to help in tubular secretion. These materials that are entering the blood, entering the nephron from this point, potassium, hydrogen, urea, these are actually entering the blood under the action of aldosterone. Aldosterone is a hormone which is controlling the entry of materials into the blood, into the nephron by the surrounding proximal convoluted in the surrounding जो है जो आपकी peritubular capillaries हैं. Water is the amount of water is going to be controlled over here under the action of antidiuretic hormone. Antidiuretic hormone it helps the reabsorption of water back and balancing the pH of blood. This is where the pH of blood is going to be balanced. Okay, next. जी इसको देख लेते हैं.
vessels called vasa rectae in the kidneys, which are found as loops. Blood flows in the opposite direction in the two limbs of each vasa rectae. When blood flows towards the renal medulla, N plus Cl minus diffuse into the blood from the interstitial fluid. But as
इंटरस्टिशियल फ्लूइड जो कि ये यहाँ पर बोल रही है, ये असल में ग्लोमेरुलर फिल्ट्रेट के बाद जो फिल्ट्रेट प्रेजेंट इनसाइड द लूप ऑफ हेनली है,
blood flows towards the renal cortex, Na plus Cl minus diffuse into the interstitial fluid. A high concentration of these ions is maintained in the interstitial fluid. Counter current mechanism.
ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट शॉर्ट क्वेश्चन है, काउंटर करंट मैकेनिज्म। इसको जरा आप लोग गौर से सुनिए।
As the glomerular filtrate enters the PCT,
proximal convolutional tubule,
it passes down the descending limb of the loop into the renal medulla region. The wall in this portion is impermeable to salt and urea, but freely permeable to water.
descending limb.
The surrounding fluid is hyperosmotic to the filtrate due to the high concentration of salt and urea. At the bottom of the loop, the wall of the tubule becomes permeable to salt and almost impermeable to water. Now, since the filtrate has a higher concentration of salts, it starts diffusing out.
Okay, the role of hormones, this is a short question, इसको complete कर लेते हैं। In the renal function, certain hormones and hormone-like substances are intimately related to the renal function. Some of these are antidiuretic hormone, which is also known as vasopressin. Okay, it is produced outside the kidney and it travels to the kidney via the blood as chemical messengers. ठीक है, दोबारा देख लेते हैं। Certain hormones and hormone-like substances are intimately related to the renal function. Some of these, such as the antidiuretic hormone or vasopressin, are produced outside the kidney and travel to the kidney via the blood as chemical messengers. Others are produced within the kidney and appear to exert only a local effect. Aldosterone के बारे में। अच्छा जी, next. Antidiuretic hormone regulates water excretion by increasing the permeability. This is very important. You can get a short question that write down the role of antidiuretic hormone or vasopressin. Okay, this is a function. Antidiuretic hormone regulates water excretion by increasing the permeability of the collecting ducts, water and salt, by accelerating water and ion transfer in a direction determined by the osmotic gradient. The receptors at the base of the brain form part of the feedback mechanism that, number one, stimulates the antidiuretic output in the osmotic fluid of the extracellular fluid. Okay? And number two, it reduces the antidiuretic output and so dilutes the urine in the osmotic concentration of the extracellular fluid. यहाँ पर मतलब ये है simple कि when your body needs water, when your body is running low on water, at that time antidiuretic hormone जो है, it comes into action to control the amount of liquid that your body has to retain. It is there that antidiuretic hormone is going to come into action. It serves to control the osmotic gradient of the body. It serves to control the osmotic content of blood. The more the antidiuretic hormone, the more urine is going to be conserved. देखते हैं, ठीक है? Solute potential of blood, it is a steady and maintained process which is maintained by the body. The water loss is balanced by water uptake, and this water uptake is controlled by antidiuretic hormone, which is also known as vasopressin. Now, what is antidiuretic hormone? Very, very important. Antidiuretic hormone is secreted by the posterior lobe of the pituitary gland if the blood is deficient in water. If the blood is deficient in water, this deficiency of water in the blood will be detected by the hypothalamus. Then the hypothalamus directs the pituitary to release antidiuretic hormones. Okay? We have less water in the blood, then the pituitary is going to release antidiuretic hormone. This antidiuretic hormone, it increases the permeability of the distal tubules. Antidiuretic hormone is very important in water conservation. It is very important in reabsorption of water from the urine back into the body. If there is less water in the blood, then antidiuretic hormone is going to be produced so that the water can be reabsorbed back into the body, into the blood. Water flows back to the blood from the kidney filtrate in the presence of antidiuretic hormone. And if we do not need reabsorption of water, we have a lot of water content in the blood, then antidiuretic hormone will not be produced. Antidiuretic hormone opens the gates that will allow reabsorption of water back into the blood. This is going to increase the amount of water present in the blood by reabsorbing more liquid from the kidney filtrate. The reverse occurs when blood has a high water content. The control of blood sodium level, now this is another hormonal control, aldosterone, it is a steroidal hormone. It is produced by the adrenal cortex. What is the function? It activates sodium and potassium pumps in the distal convoluted tubule. Sodium is actively pumped back to the blood from the kidney and the filtrate. I told you people that these ions are very important in the nervous system function specifically because we will be studying it in the next chapter. The countercurrent mechanism occurs in the loop of Henle. Water and salts are absorbed back to the capillaries from the descending loop. Now, this is the adrenal gland. Okay, it is present on top of the kidney, and this is the pituitary gland. This is the pituitary gland, which is related to the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus, it detects the amount of water that is present inside, and from the posterior part of the pituitary, antidiuretic hormone, it is passed into the blood and it comes to the kidneys and controls the water content in the blood. Okay, antidiuretic hormone and oxytocin, these are two hormones that are produced by the hypothalamus, and then they are stored in the posterior lobe of the pituitary gland, and then from the posterior lobe of the pituitary gland they are released whenever required. We will study a detail of this topic in the next coming chapters. Okay, now ये एक तस्वीर है. These people, they are traveling in the desert, and this man is saying, thank goodness we have antidiuretic hormone. Why? Why is he thanking God that we have antidiuretic hormone? Anybody? इसका आंसर क्या है? क्यों ये ऐसा कह रहा है? जल्दी कर ले तो फिर उसके बाद हम आगे चलते हैं. What is the reason? Any specific reason for thanking the presence of antidiuretic hormone? Yes, class. Any answers? जल्दी से आंसर दे दिया करें बेटा. Okay, I have an answer over here. Okay. Shabash. ठीक है. Water reabsorption, antidiuretic hormone helps reabsorption of water back in the desert and in the hot environment of the desert. Okay. ठीक है, very good, not wrong at all. Everybody is correct. ठीक है, it balances the pH of the body. Okay, this is also correct. It balances the pH of the body. Now, this is the next topic. We will do it in the next class. Now let us go back to this one, this slide. Antidiuretic hormone regulates water excretion by increasing the permeability of collecting ducts to water and salt, and by accelerating water and ion transfer in a direction determined by the osmotic gradient. Osmotic gradient is going to be created between the collecting duct and the blood capillaries. ठीक है, so along the osmotic gradient, depending where water is more and where it is required, उस हिसाब से osmotic gradient will be produced, and the water is going to move along the osmotic gradient. If there is less water in the blood capillaries and more water in the collecting duct, then the water is going to move towards the blood capillaries. If we do not have scarcity of water in the blood, then this is not going to operate. Antidiuretic hormone will be secreted only when we need water to be reabsorbed back into the blood. The receptors at the base of the brain, specifically the hypothalamus, form part of the feedback mechanism that, number one, stimulates the antidiuretic output if the osmotic concentration of the extracellular fluid is high, so as to concentrate the urine. मतलब अगर osmotic concentration बाहर का जो है वहां पर you have salt content more, then we need a concentrated urine. तो उसमें यह है कि water has to be reduced out. And if it is not required, then the reduced antidiuretic output and it dilutes the urine, and if the osmotic concentration of the extracellular fluid it is less. Okay, now let us go to the board and then we will wind up the class. Don't leave the class at present. I'm going to the board, we're going to write on the board and then we will discuss. I'm going to give you some main points. Okay. So you people, you are Masoom Anjum, you have to join the Peshawar board class also, beta, and tell your friends also to join the class. We're going to start the Peshawar board class immediately after the federal board class. Okay, so I don't want you people to be absent from the class. You have to join the Peshawar board class, Masoom Anjum. Okay, don't leave this class, be in the class also. Okay. यहाँ पर आ जाइए. ठीक है, now what we have studied today, we have seen that, okay, we have studied about the three parts. You must know about these things now. If there is something that you don't know, then it means that there is some problem somewhere. Three parts of the urine formation, three steps of the urine formation. Okay. Three steps of urine formation. Can anybody tell me the three steps of urine formation? Give me your answers in the message box. Okay. Three steps of the urine formation. Then the main parts that are involved in urine formation, what are they? The first part, if there is the glomerulus. Give me answers. The first part is the glomerulus. Write down the function of the glomerulus in the message box. Please hurry up. We don't have much time left in the class. The first part is the glomerulus, and from the glomerulus, the next part is the convoluted tubules, and the first part is the proximal convoluted tubule. I need answers from everybody, not from only one student. Okay. The next part is the proximal convoluted tubule. And in the proximal convoluted tubule, we saw that reabsorption is taking place. Next to the proximal convoluted tubule is the loop of Henle. The loop of Henle is that part where different parts are going to function differently. We have the descending loop of Henle. What is the function of the descending loop of Henle? Can anybody write it down in the message box? Descending loop of Henle, the function of the descending loop of Henle. Here, passive reabsorption of water takes place, and passive reabsorption of water takes place in the descending loop of Henle, and then we have the ascending loop of Henle. Okay, what is the function of the ascending loop of Henle? Answers. Okay, ascending loop of Henle may active absorption takes place of specific ions. Then we come to the distal convoluted tubule. In the distal convoluted tubule, what do we have? In the distal convoluted tubule, we see hormone actions in the distal convoluted tubule. ठीक है. In the distal convoluted tubule, we see ascending loop is not permeable to water. Yes, the distal convoluted tubule is not permeable to salts, beta. It is actively transporting salts. When we see the diagram, we see that we have red arrows. And red arrows means that active transport. Okay. Distal convoluted tubule, in the distal convoluted tubule, specific hormones they are acting, and mainly we have two hormones, and ये two hormones जो हैं वो कौन से हैं? These two hormones, one of them is antidiuretic hormone and the other one is aldosterone. Antidiuretic hormone is produced by the hypothalamus and stored in the pituitary and then released whenever required, and aldosterone is produced by the adrenal gland that is present on top of the kidney. I think I'm going to end the class over here. If there is any problem, if there is any question, do ask me. G beta, descending loop of Henle is impermeable to water and absorbs minerals like sodium and potassium. Yes, beta, bilkul theek hai. You are absolutely right, Pahaj. Anybody else? Okay, beta. Is there any question or should I close the classroom?